We got up very early in the morning and we were given a ride to a reasonably close distance past the combat base, got out of the vehicle and asked some villagers for directions as to what they thought might be the best way to approach 861.
Yeah. And then we just go up that way.
As the yardage turned into quarter mile, half a mile, gaining altitude with every step, gaining height. Eventually we got to a point where there were no civilian structures around, and basically we began to get up onto one of the ridge lines that really was on the approach to 861.
You think we should stick that way?
Oh, actually, no, this is the way. Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yep, down into that draw, whatever it takes, then up onto that side, and then up onto that one, then up. Right? No, I'm sorry, right here, these two right here.
That's right there.
Right there.
Okay.
In fact, the two bumps are together. The 558 bumps, there's two of them, and then down in front of the two of them, right behind the tree here, is this other little bump, right there.
Those two little bumps are 558?
Yeah, that's 558. That's where 226 was. 226.
Okay.
And so this,
Every once in a while we'd get a different view looking down. We could see Hill 558 where the 226 Marines were set up in a beautiful valley that's now filled with houses and huts and road. Back then it was just Marines and just big defensive positions.
I have shots of 558 with all the trench lines that went around it, you know, because we could see that so easy from 61. I have in my slides, that was all trench lines connecting those two hills. Probably about halfway down was all trench line, and not a bit of vegetation on top of it. Now it's all grown back. Unfortunately, the people haven't. Some American camped right here. And when they were done, they threw all their shit into this foxhole right here. This is metal. Rusted metal. This is like, I don't know what this is the remains of, but this is definitely American fucking camp right here. There's another white plastic spoon. "33 years ago, probably hill fights, spring, 67. Marines camped right in here. Right here, baby. This was a Marine Corps perimeter. This is where the heat tab came in. Still, underneath it's still good, you can read the writing. We're in a Marine Corps position here, fellas. Old sea ration debris.
Nice.
Plastic bags from the sea rats.
What's that?
I don't know what those are. There's one over there too. Someone else gonna look at this.
Oh yeah.
33 years ago.
We reached one of the level plateaus, and clearly the people around here have been digging in certain places. And at one of those sites that we came to, which was in a fairly flat area, there was evidence of American presence from years before. There was a discussion about what route we would take next, and I said I would take a look maybe 10 or 15 yards further. We had already established with the other two that there was a tree that we would head for before we took the last long plunge up towards the top of 861. I said I would go ahead and get to that tree as a marking point, which I did, and I had every intention of waiting, and I couldn't. I just began to go faster and faster, putting distance between myself and everybody else. It was the thought of being so near to a place that I've thought about for so long that pushed me up the side of this hill. And I was amazed at how the sound of the squishiness in the boots, the brush of the elephant grass as it brushed against my arms. The only thing we didn't have were weapons. And the only thing we didn't have were weapons. And I was also struck by the solitude, not a sound in the place. I wanted to wait, but I've been looking forward to this day for 32 years. Ever since the day I left H61, I can't say that I vowed or promised that I would come back, but I felt a need to come back and a desire to come back. We were on that hill for the whole siege, and then one day we woke up and they told us we had 10 minutes to pack our stuff, and we were gone. And I've been trying to find that hillside and find that place ever since.
We finally reached the top of 861. I found Dennis looking out across the ridgeline to the north. It was the same ridgeline the North Vietnamese had come over during their assault on 861. I put my camera down and walked over to where he was standing. "You finally made it," I said, and we shook hands. He wrapped his arms around me and began to cry. "I should have died here," he said. "I should have died here."
I really thought about how this is goodbye for me. The chances are very, very remote I'll ever be here again. I spent 4 months of the worst months in my life here. I should have died on this hill as I walked off it. I kept thinking, this is where you could have died, this is where you should have died.
I couldn't stop. I had to come here.
I knew a long time ago that if I ever got back to this hill, I could find my bunker. My bunker 32 years ago was in the northwest corner of the highest part of the hill, right next to the remains of a huge bomb crater. So I moved across the top of the hill, went right to the northwest corner, stood fairly close to the top and looked out, and I thought, there's the bomb crater. Turn around, and directly to my right, less than a foot away, was the beginning of a drop-off filled with elephant grass. It was my bunker. This is where I lived. This is where I lived for all the days of the siege.
The roof of my bunker. 32 years ago. Right here.
Kind of foolish in some ways, but I spent an hour with a knife. I began to tear out all the elephant grass and all the vegetation, all the little plants, all the leaves, down to the dirt inside that hole in the ground. I specifically kicked the grass away from what was the leading edge of the bunker, and I made 2 boot prints in the mud, and for the rest of the afternoon I was careful not to walk in those footprints because I wanted to leave a set of footprints where I left thousands of footprints 32 years ago. I stood next to my bunker, realized how I could have died there, should have died there probably, wondered why I never did die there. And now I'm standing 32 years later looking out and thinking, down there are homes, there are families, there are people going to work, babies being born. And I felt better about what happens there now versus obviously what happened all those years before. But there's no connection between the two. Other than the geography, there is no connection between the two.
We made it.
The hills are the same. I swear to God, they're the same.
Well, there's that tree line I was trying to hit.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
that night.
And then we put a big, and then there's the ridge line right over there, right
Right.
up to the forest. There's no, the forest has grown back now. That's where the guy got shot in the eye and killed there from that platoon that went out. There's the ridge line right over there. And look at all the bomb crates.
Yeah,
All the show.
but that little 50 caliber position
Right
is
up
right
in
in
there.
here somewhere. That we,
When you
that
see my bunker over here, you'll recognize it. You will
Right.
recognize that. You got to be very careful. Everywhere you step, these trenches, you can fall in and break your leg.
You know, I helped run airstrikes and I called artillery in all the time up there, and so some of those craters belong to me. And to look out over 500 yards and see 40 or 50 craters, still evident as craters, kind of a eerie feeling, almost like you opened up a window and looked back 3 decades. And most people don't get a chance to do that.
That's all the way to the South China Sea there. This is the DMZ, right through there.
We now were outside the perimeter, looking back up at the northern slope of 861, and I came across a small, you could open it up, and it was a locket, and there was a place for a picture on either side. The pictures are long gone. They no longer exist as pictures. And these were in an area where the North Vietnamese were. And I'm pretty sure that it was probably a North Vietnamese soldier's family pictures, his wife, his parents, a girlfriend maybe, a baby. And made me sad, really, to think that men on both sides didn't come home. I put it in my pocket to keep, not forever, but if it ever could be traced or ever found out, I'd give it back. It's not a souvenir of the war, it's a souvenir of the human condition. And it made me feel bad for soldiers on both sides who might have carried pictures like that and never come home to see the person in the picture. In early 1972, my unit was on the march along the Ho Chi Minh Trail when a flash of light shattered the curtain of darkness. Light blazed, explosions blasted. Yue and I clutched our fists, shoving each other into the dirt. When the sound of the bombs receded, I stood up, turned to find the forest in tatters. The smoke of bombs and then the settling dust of the ravaged earth gradually exposed the canopy of heaven in a night that was clear and vast and thick with stars. That's real good. And I could hear the cries of men pleading.
Yeah. Very happy now, yeah.
Very happy.
Yeah. My child teach my people.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you should.
Right. It's for you.
They want to ride too?
Hey, my buddy. We're getting out of here. How do you feel?
Oh, I don't want to say now.
Feel happy that we're leaving?
Yeah, happy. Yeah.
You're happy that we're leaving?
No.
Not very
You
good.
stay here.
There's no more war here. The war is an ancient thing here. This is a life, this is a community, this is people who live in a country and are working hard probably to make a living as best they can in a place that for us was a war. It's not a war for them, it's home to them. It was a different kind of home for us all those years before, but as far as a war presence and a feeling of war and a feeling of death and a feeling of destruction, there's none of that. There's absolutely none of that. The Vietnam War is over. It is done with. It's just a memory.
I experienced things that I'll probably never experience again. And for a brief moment in time, I saw what they felt, what they spoke of, and walked where they had walked. Tears were shed, but it was good. It was real. It was goodbye.
There's not a place up there that looks exactly the same as in the memory of all those years before, because indeed it is a different place. I guess that's the great sadness to war. The trees, the plants, the flowers, the vegetation grows back, but people don't.